Have you ever gotten really mad at an author because they killed off your favorite character or made them betray the protagonist? Whether it's tears or laughter that you're going for when you're creating your characters, making them compelling and feel real is absolutely essential to any story that's going to stick with you and last long after you finish the last couple pages. But to do that is actually probably easier than you might think it is. And that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to go into 5 tips that you can use to make your characters more compelling, more real, and more long lasting. One of the first steps in crafting characters is beginning to sketch their outline. Depending on how important a character will be in your story, you may or may not choose to do this by utilizing note-taking software like Campfire or Scrivener, so you can remain consistent. What does your character look like? How old are they? What kind of knowledge and experiences do they have? To me, this can often be the hardest part, but here's one of the great things. You can actually just come back to it. You don't have to set this all in stone the moment you come up with it and write it in your note-taking software. I constantly come back to this. I'm constantly adding things, adding little notations, removing things that don't make sense anymore, changing the personality of a character because as I look at the logical extent of things, well, things just didn't work out the way I had originally planned for them to. It's totally okay to go back and change a character as you're in the entire process of writing. If by the time you get to chapter 30 of your book, the character's entire persona has changed from what you thought it might be in chapter 1, that's something you can figure out in your background. But it helps you maintain consistency without like throwing out everything all at once just because it doesn't make sense. What I'm talking about here is going back with changing things in the background. You'd be then changing the background throughout the whole story because you're remaining consistent. And that consistency is very key to our third point, which we'll get to in just a sec. But first, I want to talk about something else. Goals and motivation. Now, you've probably heard about the importance of goals and motivation for your protagonist and antagonist, but it's also essential for your side characters. No one you've ever met, no one you've passed by on the street, shared a classroom with, or a restaurant or bar is devoid of motivation or goals. So why would your characters be? If you have a soldier enlisted in an army, why did they enlist? Why did the tavern keeper decide to open a tavern in the first place? What is the motivation of the bandits who attacked your party on the road? Motivation can be as simple as survival or as complex as a winding backstory, but it's an important part of creating characters with depth. And before you get overwhelmed, no, not every single character has to have a massive backstory. That's not what I'm talking about. But it helps to get in the habit of thinking of characters as individuals with thoughts and feelings, things that would drive them to do things, even just small little things that would make them get to the point where they are in your story. And if you can't come up with anything for that character, any thoughts, motivations, or goals, you might want to start asking yourself, what's the purpose of this character in my story? Why do I even have them here? Are they just being used to advance the story of other characters? And if so, is there a better way I can do that? Because one of the things, and I'm speaking mostly as a reader here and less as a writer, when you see hollow characters that don't have motivation, I hate them. They annoy me that they even exist on the pages because they might as well just be, window dressing. They might as well just be the same kind of thing as the actual structure of the tavern because they don't feel real. So just something to consider. So number 3, remember when I was talking about consistency and how it's important and how it can really help you, using the background stories can help you be consistent with your characters. Well, it's important because you're going to evolve your characters. Character growth takes many forms, from internal changes in their outlook of the world to the complete external changes. People experience growth of their own. You, for example, have experienced growth. Think about yourself 10 years ago. Think about yourself 5 years ago. Think about yourself a year ago. What parts have changed? What have you done? What have you learned? How have you grown from those experiences? The changes, big and small, they are what make your growth as a person, as a human being. It's rewarding for people when they're reading to see a character grow in every way. No, it doesn't have to be positive. I wouldn't sit here and think of character growth as this thing that just goes up and up and up. Character evolution can be negative. It can be growing towards something bad. It can be the growth of the villain, the would-be villain, into something more deranged and terrifying. Ultimately, what it comes down to is simply change. Completely static characters are boring and immersion breaking. Allow them to change even in small ways. Not everyone has to go through a damn metamorphosis, but the events of your story should have some impact. The good news about this, it really comes naturally. For me, storytelling can be broken down into a host of characters reacting to events, and those reactions naturally create character growth one way or another. But how should you do this? I'm going to say it. I'm going to fucking say it. Show, don't tell. When you can. You don't have to lay out the changes in characters explicitly by saying something like, "He was changed. His view on the world would forever be altered from what he'd seen." You can just as easily tie that change to internal dialogue, to outward dialogue, to changes in their behavior, how they would react to certain situations, what they would do in a situation with in mind what has already happened. Just even non-verbal things, how they react differently now versus how they reacted before. Is their stance more open? Is it more closed? How are they reacting to different stimuli? That kind of thing is a way to demonstrate change without directly telling them, hey, they changed, did you know? Look, they changed right here at this moment. That was the thing. You can just show it. Just show the subtle changes. Show the big changes. Show changes in mood. You can do it. There are hundreds of ways to show this evolution, but I think something that's helped me when I'm trying to think of how I want to represent it in my own writing is kind of this little homework thing that comes a little bit, easy because you're just going to do it while already reading. Think about the protagonist and the antagonist in your stories. And I say protagonist and antagonist because those are going to be the most obvious changes. Think about how they have changed, whether it's something like Uncle Iroh, or in Avatar: The Last Airbender, or someone in one of your stories like Driss Do'Urden across the multitude of books that he's been in. Think about how have they changed, and how are the subtle things and how are the big things. Think about what you have experienced with other fantastic characters and their version of character growth. Just a little bit of homework the next time you're watching a TV show, reading a book, or watching a movie. Think about that change. And honestly, I'm gonna nerd out here a little bit here, but if you want a fast track to that, go play Baldur's Gate 3 and watch the companion characters. Watch how they change. All of this is going to be magnified with the antagonist and protagonist. Be easy to see, especially their flaws. And that's going to be our fifth point. Have you ever heard the phrase that Superman is so perfect, he's boring? It might not make as much sense anymore with Henry Cavill's iterations around, but when Superman was created in the wake of the Great Depression, when audiences just wanted light, he was pretty damn boring. The problem was that he was perfect, and that doesn't actually exist. Perfection is fake. It's not a real thing. It's not attainable, especially not for human beings. People connect with characters because they relate to them in some way, or at the very least relate to emotions and trials. Creating a perfect character, a flawless character, is untouchable, unrelatable, and damn boring. Humanity is a story of perseverance, struggle, loss, understanding, growth, failure, and so much more. If your characters are smooth marble without any cracks, your options are limited and their depth is too. The most beautiful characters to me thrive in those dark crevices, the ones that actually you can relate to the failures and flaws, because we have them too. I have them. I have those flaws. And so I want to see those flaws in the characters that I'm reading about, the characters that I'm connecting with. I want to see them struggle, I want to see them break, and I want to see them succeed. It makes that success that much more intense and powerful because I was there when they were struggling. You know what? Does that make sense? Now take all this information, go forth, and write the characters that are gonna make me want to cry. I look forward to laughing with them. I look forward to cursing your name when you kill them off or make something happen that I didn't want to happen. All with these beautiful characters that you make. Just fucking start writing because we need your stories. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.